Hello, lovers. Welcome to Heart, the Living Spiritfully podcast. I am your host, Paul Galoro, and in this podcast, I have heart-centered conversations with people I love. Today's guest is Roxy Menzies, and this conversation was long overdue. Roxy and I were supposed to meet back at the beginning of 2020, but as with most things, COVID had a different plan for us. And so, this conversation comes to you. We recorded it sometime in July. Now, we make reference to the last time that I saw Roxy, about me in my underwear in a pickup truck. Let me explain just so you understand a little bit better what's going on. I was doing some physical work around the corner from where Roxy lives, and I hadn't seen Roxy in years. And so she had just moved back. I was in the area. I was done work. I took off my pants because they were all dirty, and I got into my pickup truck in my underwear, and I drove over to her home, and she came out and introduced her little daughter to me. She was so adorable. We social distanced, of course. I stayed in my pickup because, well, I didn't have any pants on. Not that that would have stopped me, but I didn't want to scare Roxy's neighbors. And we had a little catch up, which was nice, and that inspired me to invite her onto the show. This conversation goes everywhere. We talk about Roxy being a new mom. We talk about our experience in the fitness industry and how things have changed over the last little while. And we also talk about Roxy's experience as a biracial woman living around the world. And there's one point in particular where we're talking about a group of people from Turkey known as Afro-Turks. And in typical fashion, I always like to try to make connections between my life to understand others. And I kind of missed the mark with this one. And what was lovely was that Roxy didn't quite call me out. Instead, she called me into the conversation and guided me from a place of ignorance to a place of enlightenment and showed me where I sort of missed the message. So I am forever grateful for that. Now, please enjoy this conversation, and also remember to check out the links with the show notes because Roxy mentions a couple blog posts that she has written. She's a lovely writer, and I hope that you will check those out. They're included in the show notes. Check her out on the socials as well. And remember to like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you need to do with wherever you're listening to this so that you can be informed when the next episodes are released. Also, please remember to join the Living Spiritfully Collective Facebook group if you're interested. It's free to join. Conversations of all sorts are happening there, and I'd love to have you. Check the link with the show notes and be sure to join in. That's it for me. Please enjoy my heart-to-heart with Roxy Menzies. And so we begin. Are you ready?
Yeah, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, please.
I have a list of like certain like courses or things that I want to take, and one of your meditations has been on my list. Like it's all about like budgeting time, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And that was so nice. And I was like, well, this is what I've been missing out on. I need to get one of those meditations.
Thank you.
It was great. And I love, no one's ever said a gold disco ball. I love that. That totally did it for me. I'm all about the 70s.
Oh,
like that
same.
Like the music, the clothing, that was me.
Absolutely. It was such a time. Come on, you can't get better than like 70s disco, funk, soul, all like that good stuff.
I agree. If I'd been in my probably late teens and early 20s, I would have rocked the 70s, especially in New York. I'd probably be dead right now. Like I wouldn't be sitting here right now between like the sex, drugs, rock and roll and all that stuff. But that's probably why the universe is like, no, we're going to skip that part.
We kind of need you here for a minute. So
yeah.
That's so funny. Okay. All right. So let's start this thing.
I think you should put that in.
All right. So the podcast has already started. Welcome to everyone that has been listening so far to the Living Spiritfully podcast. My name is Paul, and I'm here today with a dear friend. And we were just before this trying to figure out how we know each other, and we just do. This is my dear friend, Roxy Menzies. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored that you asked me. And I love that too. We just are there's no real story. We know each other.
Exactly. But it's interesting because, so the street that your parents live on, I lived on that street, down the street from you, 30 years ago. I was in grade 2 when I lived in that house. And so we went to the same elementary school, I think, for a minute. I was there only for 1 year.
St. Anne's.
St. Anne's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we went to the same high school, but again, being in different grades. We had
because I'm a couple years older than you, right?
Yeah, you're the same age as my sister. I think you know my sister.
Okay.
You guys were in the same grade. But then my friend from high school was sisters with your friend from high school. So we just sort of rolled around in the same circle. But then fitness brought us into each other's lives. And I'll never forget sort of one of the first times that you and I had a major interaction. I don't know if you remember this, but because by the time we got into each other's lives a little bit more, I think you were already in Turkey and going back.
Probably.
And forth.
Yeah, most likely.
So that was around 2007, 6, 7, 8, around that time.
Yeah. Because I was in Turkey around 2007. I've been to other places as well, but it was predominantly Turkey. So I think around that time, yeah.
Yeah. And you had come back. Yeah. You had come back. You were visiting home and came to my awesome abs class. And you gave me some feedback. And it was love ever since. Well, I asked for it. I was like, what do you think?
That would actually totally be me. I remember being in New York and the breakers come on and they perform and then they collect money.
Right.
And the kid came up. The kid must have been 13. And I gave him money and I was like, look, it was really good, but you need to work on your footwork. And he's just like, okay. And I was like, yeah, you're a little bit off with the rhythm. Everything else is great. Athleticism, keep going for it, And he didn't ask for my opinion. So,
and just so we can put this in context for people, that you're just not going around randomly giving random feedback to people. Roxy is a dancer, is a Pilates teacher, is a gyrotonic, yamana, all of these things.
Wow, good. Remember all the names. People usually stop after Pilates.
Well, I pay attention to you, and I love the work that you do, because I think it's just so unique. One of the things that I love about you is A, your love of movement, and B, the way you translate movement into everyday life. I just think it's so you have a way about you, girl, that that I love. Yeah. And so on that note, because this isn't about what you do, this is about your heart space. So I asked, how is your heart?
I just got butterflies. Good question. I would say right now, today, at this time, this moment, it's actually very full. I would say it's probably, truthfully, it's probably 98% full.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it does. And it's my mind that's kind of well, you were sad about this and this is going on in the world and that breaks your heart. But if we're going to be true and talk about the moment, it's very, very full. And I believe that's because of my daughter. She's almost 7 months, and it sounds cliche and it sounds, like their new mom, I love my kids, all that stuff. But it's really true. She is the best thing I could have done, or the best thing that's happened to me. She brings me so much joy.
Well, and I know firsthand from my pickup truck in my underwear in your driveway.
Yes.
She is just the cutest little bundle of joy. I've never seen a happier, more excited being on this planet.
I don't And I mean, I feel so blessed because I mean, I'm not that happy. I can be really miserable. I can be really like down and out. So I mean, she doesn't get that full on happiness from me. My husband's pretty happy, but still hers is like, it's something else.
Yeah, that's
Definitely a gold
amazing.
disco ball inside her for sure, shining out.
How is life as a new mom? You said she's 7 months, and
Yeah.
was she born here, or because you had just
No, she was
moved back?
born. Yeah, she was born here. I came
Okay.
back in September,
Okay.
which I have to say, I mean, I wasn't expecting to be pregnant when I was. So that completely, like every plan that we had completely got knocked down and thrown, and literally over and over and over again. If I backtrack for a minute, I remember reading my horoscope because I was home for Christmas 2018. I
Yeah, you
picked
rolled
up.
my face that time, remember?
That's
Was it
right,
that?
I did. Yeah. And it was one of the Toronto magazines and the horoscope. And I remember I cut it and I kept it because it said like 2019 was going to be a year where towards this, like, you kind of have the Midas touch. Like you can turn, what is the alchemist thing? Oh, you turn metal into gold, like that sort of thing. So I was like, yes, this is going to be my year. But then I read another horoscope that was like, oh, girl, Uranus is coming into your sign and it is gonna knock you off your feet like over and over and over again. I was like, whatever, I ignored that part. And by April, it's when like Uranus kind of creeped in. And by June, I was like, okay, it's dead on. Because literally like everything just kept getting knocked. And my whole plan, because I was going to move back to Canada full time, everything got moved up, and it was just a completely crazy time. But now there was so much in that, because in some ways it prepared me for 2020. And also I'm so happy that she came when she did. I mean, she was born January 5th. So I missed the period of like the lockdowns in the hospital, and I feel for the moms that have to give birth and have that initial postpartum period during, the lockdown of COVID-19. So, so she really constantly like knocked us off our feet, but in a good way. Like I think it made us stronger, started
Right.
preparing us for this. And yeah, and life as a mom, I mean, it's not all butterflies and happiness. It's tough and everything. It has its moments, but I don't know, it's great. And I had a lot of fear beforehand. I loved being pregnant, but even before she was born, I kind of kept being like, just give me one more week. I've got so much stuff to get done. I want this done before you come. And and people freak you out because they'll tell you you'll never sleep again, you'll never read a book again, like once you have a kid, like all these things, right? So I was trying to get as much done beforehand. And then she came, and of course you have this new human in your life that you're responsible for. And I look at parenthood as I'm a guide for her. It's like I don't own her. I can't cling to her. Like she has her own journey, her own mission or whatever. And my job is to guide her to the best of my ability to what she needs to do and be. But in the beginning, you don't really know what you're doing. I didn't. I mean, when she was born, I had her in my arms and the midwives were leaving, and I was like, I don't know what to do now.
Is there a manual to go with this thing?
Totally. And they're just like, oh, you just love her. And I was like, hey, but I mean, love's not really going to put milk in her body. So yeah, it was tough. You don't know what you're doing in the beginning, but you really do you just do it and you just figure it out. And you have to have your moments of like, we beat ourselves up for so many things in general in life. And I think especially like moms and parents, and you have to give yourself some grace and just be like, oh, we didn't know, we're figuring it out as we go along. We know not to do that again, or, we're going to switch it up a little bit this way. And
Right.
yeah, you just do it. I don't know.
Yeah. What you said is just so interesting. I love it. Where you said, my role is to just guide her. She's got her own sort of plan, but it's just to guide her as best as I can. Where did that come from? Is that
idea?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I have to be honest, like, I don't fully even know how I'm going to guide her. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be one day. I mean, it's going to be one day at a time, and basically doing, based on my own experiences and also, I guess, what I think is best, and also what I've witnessed from what I've seen other people do and how they raise their kids and whatnot. And I've seen parents where it's just like they're almost like so clingy on their children, and or that children, like, they want them to go a certain way. That's their idea of what their life should be like. And I mean these are all words right now. It's going to be action that makes a difference.
Right.
But I'm hoping that, you know, I can guide her on the path. Like, I can't be like, oh, she's going to be a dancer, or she's going to be this. Although I'm kind of like, because she drums and she like makes so much noise, I'm like, she's going to be the new Sheila E.
Oh, what? Yes.
But again, I mean, she might just be like, I hate dancing and music, and I want to be an IT nerd and a politician and take over the world or something. Then I'd be like, okay, well, if that's what you're here to do, my job is to make sure you have some grounding and know about these other things in life. How
has your upbringing informed now the upbringing of your daughter?
Yeah. Ooh, this is tough. Because, well, I mean, this is a West Indian household, you know, they're very private about things. They don't like to talk about, you know, like, well, you talk about my business, like, you know, kind of everywhere. So it's kind of, it's a bit tricky, but I don't know. I mean, I mean, if you look at it like certain pros and cons, like if you talk to most people whose parents are West Indian, the West Indian culture, they tend to be pretty tough. Like, it's very tough love, you know. And growing up, like, you know, you would get the thing from aunts and uncles and your parents, and it would be, what are you so sensitive for? Like, how are you gonna go out in the world if you're so sensitive about things? And my idea was just like, I don't care what they think out in the world. Like, I care what you guys think. So of course I'm going to be sensitive here. Like, I don't, you know, I don't care if I'm sensitive out there. I probably won't be. I'll be more tough, you know? So there's a bit of that and a bit of armor, you know. It's a different, like, it's tough love. It's a different type. So I don't know if I don't think I want to have those sort of armors, like being more affectionate. On the other hand, I have to say my parents did a pretty good job of giving us space to also do the things that we wanted to do and experiment and explore. And I didn't realize that growing up until later on, but like in the basement, there's still where I painted on the wall. I mean, to this day, my dad's like, can I please paint over this wall? Like, I'm over it. And I'm like, no, because my daughter has to see it, you know? But the fact that they would let me do that. I mean, how many parents would let their kids draw on walls or,
right,
you know, things like that. And I had a pretty independent spirit, and they gave me the space to roam. So that's a huge positive for sure. That's something that I hope to also do with my daughter. But yeah, I think being a little more open, and also they don't always get my life. You have certain parents that it's just like, well, you come out of university and you get a good paying job, 9 to 5 with your benefits and, you know, whatever, and you get married and you have kids and you have a house and a mortgage and a white picket fence, blah 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 blah. You know, although we don't really have white picket fences up here in Canada, but you get, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, and I never really fit into that. So there's always kind of butting head. When are you going to settle down and be in one place? And meanwhile, I've known people that, you know, they take their kids on their back, and I know a woman that backpacks through Afghanistan with her like 2-year-old on her back. I wouldn't do that personally, but I'm saying, like, everybody has a different way of doing things, and one isn't necessarily better than the other. So I hope that I can have that openness towards her.
Yeah. 7 months ago, this world was a completely different place. So like, and 7 months from now, who knows, like, what the world is going to be like. What is one of your biggest fears of raising a child at this time right now?
I worry about, this sickness. I worry about, you know, if she does get sick, I worry about how long is it going to be until she can be around other kids properly, you know, like and not just her, but I also worry about other children who you can't really make all of them social distance. Like, you know, if you go into a kindergarten, like, chances are they're not going to social distance, but having those restrictions, what is that going to do to them, their mindset? And also, are they going to be like socially awkward later on? You know, because even after 4 months of having this distancing, when I see somebody who's also been quarantined, like a family member, and they come to hug me, and I'm just like,
What are you
like,
doing?
yeah, there's that bit of awkwardness. So
Yeah.
I wonder what's going to happen to kids that are growing up in this. And I really, I don't think we're ever going back to what life was like 7 months ago. I don't think it's always going to be like this. I think we're going to have a completely new normal. And I have no idea what that's going to look like. I mean, I worry about also how we're going to travel in the world. Her grandmother is in Turkey. She has family on that side of the world. We have family in Jamaica. Is it going to be easy to get around? Of course, there's always the financial things that you worry about, or can you provide a good life? I'm a mixed child. I mean, she's mixed too, but if I'm talking like black and white, she has like more white, but she's also we're not religious, but her father's Muslim, and then my side of the family, like Christian or whatever. So she's a mix of many things, which can be beautiful, but it can also be hard, like knowing where you fit in, how the world looks on those things.
Right.
Oh, and I worry about the earth, like even before she was born. I remember, I think it was sometime before I was even pregnant, and sitting down one time with my husband to have dinner. This was in Turkey. I go, can you imagine one day, like we're talking to our kids or our grandkids like in the future, and we say, yeah, we used to eat like this, and that doesn't exist like 20 or 30 years from now. I mean, maybe that's looking really dark into the future, but
Yeah.
but we don't know.
Right. Well, there's scientists that are saying like we don't have much time left on this planet if we keep going in the trajectory that we're going. And this was before all the COVID stuff was happening. Now with all the COVID stuff, everything is even more plastic. We got those plexiglass things that are up. When it comes, like everything's now disposable. You've got more wipes. You've got more little plastic bottles of hand sanitizer. It's almost like for a second, all of the going plastic free thing has been put on hold. Some grocery stores, there was a period where you couldn't bring your own bags. They were just giving plastic bags because they didn't want you to come and infect things and blah, blah. And so it's almost like, we have this thing that's happening because the planet is saying, you guys need to change something. Like the COVID, COVID's came because the way we're functioning on the planet needs to change. And what's the first thing that we do is we intensify more of the things that we did that I think brought on this
because it feels like in the beginning it seemed like it was almost a break on the planet, right? Because people weren't driving around as much and there wasn't air travel. But then I agree with you, all the amount of plastic and things that we're throwing out, or apparently online shopping has gone up quite a bit, things like that. I don't know. I mean, there's so many unknowns. It's a bit freaky. I mean, even with our industry, like I'm concerned about our industry as well. Like gyms, studios. I already know a couple studios that have had to close. I don't know. It's weird because people that are literally thriving during this time, and then others that they can barely get by. Some people that have moved online and now they're able to teach from people around the world. They're making more money, they're happier, they don't have to commute, things like that. But then you have others that, or for instance, like my heart goes out to studio owners right now with the overhead costs and going back, like the amount of additional work that has to go into place, and you have to have less people, so that's less income coming in. Like it's an interesting time.
I'm going to say something that I haven't really addressed. I've addressed this with one or two other people, and now I'm having this on this recorded conversation that's going out into the world. I'm just thinking, so as a previous studio owner, luckily I closed my studio down in 2018. I can picture what current studio owners are going through and the thoughts that are going through their mind, etc. But from the instructor standpoint, and from someone that's been, in the industry working for gyms and studios since over 15 years now, I don't know if the model that was created way back when we were in, I don't think it was really working to begin with. It wasn't very, it wasn't inclusive for all aspects of the model. So I think that huge structure needs to be sort of revisited.
It's like you said, it's a business model that I think it's not a really good business model. It hasn't been.
Yeah.
for
Well,
quite some time.
and this is another thing too. I have I have issues with the word industry and business. Like, because you
Okay.
and I have had these conversations years ago, and we took, business workshops and stuff like that, and even then it didn't really sit well with me. And I understand that the work that I do needs to be I need to get compensation for the work that I do. I'm not just going and giving out classes for free as a yoga teacher, as a spiritual coach. I'm not just going to be going doing all
Right.
this stuff for free. I understand that there needs to be an equal value exchange, but I have an issue with the word business and industry because of what business and industry means. It becomes transactional. And when something's transactional, it takes from one for the benefit of the other. Whereas something's relational, it's a collaborative effort that benefits all parties involved.
Right.
And what we need more of is the latter, is that relational relationships versus transactional relationships. And those
Right.
transactional relationships is what got us into this situation anyway. It's like, how many hundreds of years have we had transactions between white people, purchasing BIPOC, people of color, for to then
Right.
enslave? Do you know what I mean? Like, so that
Yeah.
transactional mindset needs to be abolished in all ways.
Yeah, like I see where you're going with it, and that's what I mean. It's such a tough conversation because there are so many. It's so deeply seated in kind of everything that we know, right? Because it's all the models, basically, that make the world go round, as we know it right now. So how do you dismantle that, especially when we talk about the big businesses that
Yes.
really don't want to sort of step back? And I mean, how many people are willing to, like you said, even give up things or step back and, downsize their lifestyle? Like you hear stories about people that are, fairly wealthy and they lose, whatever, like they almost go bankrupt. For me, because I worked in Turkey and I worked with some pretty affluent people, and I would hear some of these stories and I'm like, why couldn't they just downsize? Like, why couldn't you just live in a smaller house? Like, I mean, you had a mansion with all of this stuff. Why would it be so hard to step back a little bit? And I get it that things are very relative. I mean, if you had somebody who's like living in a shack and you ask them to go down to less, that's not quite the same as somebody who's in a mansion and asking them to go down to, like, maybe, I don't know, 3-bedroom house somewhere else.
I guess I get what you're saying, but also, don't we often see that the more affluent people are asking those with less to scale back? They may not be saying it like specifically, but we look at politicians are telling us, like, they keep slicing back on community resources.
That's very
right?
true. Meanwhile, their salaries aren't going down. Yeah.
Their salaries are going up, but then they're pulling from resources that will serve the community. And there's studies that have been shown that when you put money into community resources, you will have less crime. And so less crime means less need for police presence. And less police presence just means more resources for more, so we then begin to thrive in a different way.
But I think it goes down to, like, what is the percentage of wealth in the world? It's like, what, 2 or 5% of the population is like the wealthiest.
Yeah,
and they
I
don't
think
want
it's
to
like
let that
1%,
go.
isn't it?
And they don't want to let it go. Yeah, I don't know. How'd we get so dark? No, but they're all true things, and it's I mean, I certainly don't have the answers, and I don't know.
Yeah, neither do
where
I.
we
But
go
it's
from here, but it's still things that we need to talk about. And I know for me, like, I need to be more involved, more educated about what's happening in my own neighborhood. Like who the MP is and who's up for what in the elections and what each party is doing. And I feel like when I was younger, I would be reading much more about these things. And then I don't know, I think when I got to university and I'm just like, and especially when I started traveling and working around the world, I was like, my life's been like really heavy for a while. I'm just going to kind of enjoy
Mm.
as much as I can for a bit. Yeah, I think it's important that we do stay educated on our history and all of the history. And that's the thing, like when I was younger, I wasn't relying on what I was being taught in school. I was going out and finding more resources. And that's something that I hope, I need to also instill in my daughter.
What was your experience like out in the world, not just in Canada, but like you said, Turkey, you've been all over the globe. What
In regards to like racism and stuff?
Yeah, if you want to share your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you are. I find, and I also spoke about this with a friend whose husband also like traveled quite a bit. You get people in other countries where they don't, because of what they're seeing on television and social media and with the music, they're sort of imitating that without having any idea of the history behind it. Right. And so that was always tough, because obviously I'm very sensitive to those things, because as white as my skin is, I am mixed. So if you're going to say anything racist, like going to come out, like my husband's had to like hold me back and be like, you need to calm down. And then like warn people ahead of time, like you cannot talk that way in front of my wife and stuff like that. But yeah, really having to just educate people and be like, no, it's not okay for you to say that. And they honestly have no clue. And they're just like, well, why not? And I go, because it's a derogatory term. Even here in Canada, like I had white friends and I had to explain why blackface is not appropriate, and they're just like, but it's just a costume, or it's just this. And I go, no, do you understand the history of what blackface is? So it's everywhere. And I found abroad, it was more they just didn't understand. And it was interesting because Turkey actually has a population of what they call Afro-Turks. I'm not sure if they've actually named themselves Afro-Turks. And it's fascinating because at one point it was just, they're completely, like they've been in Turkey for generations. So they're Turkish, they speak the language, but they just have black skin or brown skin and different shades within the black community. And they don't know why. So other people are just like, well, why do you look like that? Like, where do you come from? And they're like, I'm from Turkey. I've been in this generation. So they sort of lost their history where they came from. And it was only, I don't know, again, like maybe 20 years ago that there's kind of like an association was made and exploring their roots, and they could come together, and it's pretty interesting.
I talked about this in another episode. When Italians came to Toronto, you had the group of Italians that was all, yes, I'm Italian, I'm proud, and they joined organizations and they were really proud of their culture and everything and kept it going. Then you had the other side where it was like, okay, we're here in Canada, we're assimilating, we're raising our children to, be like all the other kids.
Yeah.
I talk about how my experience was closer to the latter. We didn't, like, my parents didn't like completely forget it about us being Italian, but I never felt that we fully celebrated it as much as others. So I think if it wasn't for me going back and searching into my roots, at about 2016, I started to feel this call to go back and just discover more about it. I think that with the generation after me and the ones after them and so on, like we would eventually lose that. So It almost sounds like that's maybe what happened there, where they were just like trying so hard to assimilate into the culture.
Possibly, but probably most likely in their case, it came from literally like being slaves and brought over, like even during Ottoman Empire and whatnot, right?
I didn't even think of that. And that is a very ignorant thing. I recognize. Thank you for that.
No, I mean, it's just kind of looking back and putting it together. And then after that, probably trying to assimilate,
and there's a difference.
It's interesting that you bring up Italian Canadians, because I don't know if you remember in high school, but there was like a huge divide between like the black students and the Italians. Maybe it had kind of calmed down by the time you got there. I don't know, but it was pretty strong. And I have to say, for the longest time, I didn't have what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't think very highly of Italians in general based on that experience. Not that I thought badly or anything, but I was just like, whatever. And then with all my travels and going to Italy, like I remember saying to a friend of mine, saying like, they're not like the Italians. I mean, we're talking about second and third generation Italians, right?
Right. With my experience too, there is a lot of racism in Italians, and that gets passed down. So I'm sure.
I think that's in every community, though. Like Like we have so much colorism within the black community.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this with a friend yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, like I grew up, I actually just wrote a blog for Black Girl Pilates. I talk about like what it's like to be mixed and to be able to pass for white sort of thing. And I know like for the longest time, like I used to wish my skin was darker so that people would actually like know what I am, you know, as opposed to just being like, what are you? And going abroad, it was interesting because they would see me as something exotic, you know? So it would be like, they're like, oh, like you have a really interesting look. Like you have this sort of like African, why is your hair sort of like African style and your body like that, you know? And then someone else would be like, oh, her daddy is black or something like that. And they'd be like, oh. So it was interesting to be like this exotic person that had some of these features, but not the dark skin. So I was like less threatening. But yeah, growing up, or I would hear so many people because my brother is darker than I am. And so growing, I mean, you think of just how, as a child, you know, like how sensitive children can be, or most children can be, right? Just constantly growing up and constantly hearing about how my brother's complexion is just like so beautiful and so amazing. You know, and it was, you know, just like a nice brown and not too dark, but not too light, right? There's colonialism right there, you know?
Yeah, what is
but not
that,
like
any of the...
pasty white either. So, you know, for a long time, I grew up just like not liking my skin. And even to this day, I mean, I have moments of just, you know, I mean, it's a common trait amongst most biracial children. It was just like, where do you fit in?
I had a conversation with a woman, the first woman on my podcast, Umal Kiram. She was born and raised in India, and even within herself, she had very similar feelings. She was saying that, you know, they had this skin cream, Fair and Lovely. You would put it on and it would be to lighten your skin, because if you had lighter skin, then you would have a better opportunity. You would have a better marriage proposal. You would have better everything.
Oh my gosh, and because I lived in Thailand for a while.
Oh yeah.
Do you know how difficult it was to find even soap that didn't have whitening, I don't know, cream or chemicals or whatever it is in it?
Yeah.
It was astounding.
Because when I was there, and you know, I had just been in Italy for 2 months, and then I go to Thailand and I'm like, I want to preserve my tan, because when I go to Australia after this, it's going to be winter and I want to be golden. And yeah, everything, the face masks, everything had, but then at the same time, it's interesting because here I am trying to like get my olive skin, and then there's people that are trying to get their darker skin lighter. I'm trying to get my lighter skin darker. It's just, but this is that white supremacy. This is that racism that is just so insidiously in all little aspects. It's like, how do you, and you used this term before, like how do you dismantle something that's literally ingrained in everything?
Yeah.
It's like you pull it out, the whole thing's gonna dissolve, and you need to, I don't even know, but
yeah.
There we went with that.
I know, right? From like a 95% full heart to the world's messed up.
But let's bring it back. No, because I also, you know, I read, you sent me a blog post that you had written about being a mom and movement and everything. And the thing that I love that you said in there was about how, you know, we have this ideal of, okay, well, I just had a baby, so in 6 weeks I should be going back to like my high intensity classes, and I should be beach body ready by, you know, week 8. And you talked about a woman that you had worked with that basically her body fell apart from doing that. Oh, well, you didn't say that so much, but
yeah, that harsh. But no, I've known plenty of women that have rushed back into working out, and it still amazes me how, because I feel like there's so much more talk and so much more research in regards to women's health than there ever was, and there's so much more about sort of like female anatomy and pelvic floor dysfunction and whatnot, which also goes for men, but I'm going to just focus on the women right now.
Yeah, please.
That it amazes me with all of that there's still so many women that don't know, because I've seen, you know, like I've been on Zoom mommy baby groups, and they're just like, well, I've been doing these workouts and these planks and these crunches, and like, no, don't you know, like you could be making your separation worse by doing that, you know? it still astounds me how much is out there. But at the same time, it shouldn't, because I think it was a couple months ago, I think it was Women's Health magazine. They had an article, and there was a woman that was pregnant, doing a workout, and she must have been like a good 7 or 8 months pregnant. And she was doing a full plank and kind of a crazy workout. And it's not to say that some pregnant women, that, you know, all pregnant women can't do planks, because some of them are hardcore, and you see them like doing CrossFit and everything. So it's not so much about the exercise. It's more about, are you connected enough? Can your body actually do those exercises? And most women can't when you're pregnant, because you're being completely stretched out. So you can't really engage and connect your abdominals to do a proper plank. And the point is that this workout, they had this workout of all these exercises, and there was no talk about how to use your breath, how to connect, about diastasis recti, about pelvic floor dysfunction. There was none of that. So if a woman doesn't know about that, and they're just like, oh, well, I want to keep training. They say that exercise is good and can help you with your birth, and they're going to follow something like that. And then after their birth, they're just like, I don't understand why I still look pregnant. I'm doing all these crunches. I'm doing all these planks. And it's like, because you have that out in the world as well. And so much of that, or this, what they took out from the article when they edited it was, I did write about, you know, we're expected to bounce back or just like be in the MILF status. They took out MILF.
They didn't
I actually
have
a blog that's called the Pregnancy and Beyond Chronicles. I'm hoping it's going to be up in September. And the whole premise of it is to know that, like, it's not all about screaming women. Like, you can have a positive pregnancy and a positive birth, and just to let people know about different resources. And the reason it came up is because when I was pregnant, I ran into other pregnant women, and they were just like, I don't know. I would just say, oh no, you can go to this in Toronto. You can do this. There's this organization that has this. They have this. You know, call these people because you can get free diapers. You can get this, this, and this. And I was like, I should make a blog. So that's kind of where it came from. So I've been writing those sort of things. But yeah, one of the articles is like embracing my MILF status, because there was a period where 2 weeks after giving birth, must have been like the hormones and everything, I felt amazing. And yeah, I think it was literally 2 weeks after giving birth. And the three of us, my husband and my daughter, myself, we went somewhere, and I left them to go grab something to eat, but I had to go like across the way into this hospital to their food court in order to get food. And on the way there, this guy was like checking me out, and he actually said, he's just like, oh, he's like, I just had to tell you, you look beautiful. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then I think it was like a day later or something, I went to the pharmacy, and the guy was just, I don't know, like the energy was there. I was like, what's happening? I was like, I'm a MILF now. I have to embrace this MILF status. Meanwhile, about 3 weeks later, it like nosedived, and that MILF status was like completely gone. It's all about like hormones and stuff. But yeah,
that's interesting. I wonder if there was like almost like a pheromone that you were letting
I'm
off,
sure
that was letting all the men know that she's fertile and she just gave birth.
Maybe. And that's the thing too, and some women don't feel good after birth at all, right? You know, but I had a really positive and beautiful birth. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I felt like more womanly afterwards.
I love that.
Just kind of nice.
What has been supporting you in supporting your body post giving birth?
It's been changing so much, because even before I had a child, I find that time management has always been a tough thing for me. Even now, it's a bit tough. And I think that day when you were in your underwear in your truck, we had a conversation. I was telling you that I was finding it, like, I don't know what it was, but I was finding it really difficult to get my body down on the mat and do my yamana body roll work. Because the thing is, I know that is what my body needs, but for some reason I was kind of putting it off. And I was actually going to write to you and tell you that I've actually gotten back into the practice. And
nice.
But unfortunately, I waited so long that it was like, my body was like, we're going to break down if you don't actually get your body down on the mat and do the work. So I think it was on Saturday, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning because my body was so achy. And I rolled from 2:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the morning.
Whoa. In
the basement watching FX series of Betty Davis and Joan Crawford.
I haven't seen that yet. Is it good?
It's pretty good, but I think they took a lot of liberties. But yeah, and rolled out, and it was painful. Like, they're like, just how tight everything had gotten. And I had been feeling good because I was getting back into, I've been walking every morning. I designed a stroller workout for myself. I was doing some like postnatal stuff, and I was being really careful because, like I said about, you know, the pelvic floor stuff. So basically this last week, I've kind of like, okay, I'm going to drop those things, just do the light walking, but really just focus on the yamana work. And yeah, it's intense, like especially working with the organs and the abdominals. You know, wasn't a walk in the park before pregnancy. So you can imagine now as everything shifts, but like, it's weird. Like I could say it was painful, but I got relief.
Right.
You know? So I even found like I would be tired, and when I hold her, like I'm slouching a lot. Like I wrote in that blog post that I feel like my torso shortened, and that was something like I always had that length in my torso, so it's weird to be that way. And just even after rolling on Saturday, like a couple of days, I'm just like staying up. So I would say the biggest support body wise is the yamana work. I mean, a part of me wants to be like, shame on you for waiting so long to do the work consistently. But then that's where I talk about, like, I do have to give myself grace. Like, you know, there's so much to figure out as well. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like this whole, like, why is it such a rush? And the thing is, I feel like I can give myself grace, but like I've actually felt more pressure externally. Like, for instance, to lose the extra 20 pounds. I'm just kind of like, well, it's been like only 6 months, you know, like it takes almost 10 months to grow a human. I get it. Plus we have COVID, you know, like the quarantine 15. But I just kind of just like, well, no, it's been 6 months. So why haven't you lost that weight yet? You know, like, and I've actually had people like say that to me. They're like, well, you better lose it. And the interesting thing, the people that have sort of kind of made remarks about the weight and stuff are people that
are no longer in your life, I hope.
Well, no, it's not that easy.
Okay.
So they're like family. No, not that. They're usually like not in shape themselves, you know, or necessarily taking the best care of their body, which could just be a reflection of like, well, this has happened to me, so it shouldn't happen to you. I don't know. So sometimes it's like, and if anything, that gives me more, like, I have to say, I have to show myself even more grace, because I feel like I'm not going to get it out there.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what it comes down to anyway, right? Like it's again, like not being so external. Yeah.
I look at those moments, because there's been so many moments. Like, I started off the year strong. One of my clients gave me a discounted membership at a gym, and I was like 6 days a week. I was doing my thing, getting back into my calisthenics. Then COVID happens, gym shut down. I'm still doing my body weight workouts for maybe like the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then it just went and I stopped moving, and I felt it within my body. Now, I didn't birth a child, but I could feel from, you know, moving quite a bit for a long time and then not moving at all. And, you know, I was going for walks around the block, but that didn't match the same movement. But then I got back into it after, and the way it's funny, because I had said something to a client hundreds of years ago, and then I was reminded that I said this, and so I'm like, okay, just do that. And I forgot that I told her this, and when she told me, I told her, I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant advice. Who told you that? She's like, you did. I was like, wow.
You do give brilliant advice.
Thank you.
Yes.
But what I had said to her, because she was trying to get back into working out, she's like, what kind of workout should I do? And I was like, girl, who cares about what the work is? Just move your body. Go into the gym, see what your body wants to do that day, do it, and then go home. So I started to do that, and then I was just like, why did I wait so long to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we're always like, I feel like it's a beautiful reminder, because I think as active, regular movement people, we forget what it's like to not move and then have to start moving. So it's a nice reminder, I think, especially as we're slowly getting out of COVID and people are starting to, you know, look for movement again. We have to be reminded of what's it like to be from that starting point. So,
right.
For those that have no idea what yamana body rolling is, try, because remember you did my face. Okay, can you just like explain this whole situation real quick? Because people are like, what does
you
that
rolled
mean?
your face? So what does that mean? Yeah. Okay, how to explain? Well, yamana body rolling, it's a bunch of different size balls and with different density. And basically you roll your body on it, and there's a certain logic to how you roll, because you're rolling the muscles from insertion to origin. Origin to insertion. And it's a way to align the body, which I know still sounds vague, but it's very different. And you might just say, well, I can just do foam rolling. It's very different than foam rolling. It's much deeper. It's even different than, the yoga tune-up. And the Yamuna system is very focused on stimulating the bone, which sounds very bizarre because most people do not know anything about stimulating the bone.
My experience with the Yamuna rolling, you said it stimulates the bone. And I remember when you did half my face, and I could just see a difference in just the way everything sat. And I'm feeling like I'm going to need another face roll soon.
Yeah.
But then you remember I came to you twice. You've done my body. I remember you rolled my one leg, and it was like longer than the other and straighter and
right. Because
I had a lot more ease in my hips after that.
Right. Because if you think of this as your hip joint and this is your femur, your thigh bone, right? And it's like this, and it's supposed to have this space. And if we're sitting all the time, right, or we're doing certain repetitive movements, and it starts to get pulled in like this, right? Mm-hmm. So all those ligaments, all those muscles, everything's getting tight, all the fascia, it's like dehydrating, right? And then Yamuna goes in and starts working around all the different muscles. So then you get that space back again. And that's why it's always nice for people to feel it. That's why I'll usually do one side, and then I can even take a picture and they'll just be like, they usually feel it themselves, or they see the picture and they're just like, whoa, that leg is longer, or they just come up sitting up straight. It's a great modality. I'm so glad that I've, discovered. I'm so glad I'm a practitioner of it. Even in regards to pelvic health, I remember working with a girl who every time she went running, she would pee. She couldn't hold it. And it wasn't so much the strength. It was really her alignment. And we didn't even work on pelvic floor. And she was actually doing Pilates, which I was like, nobody's addressed this with you, but that was another story. And she did all the rolling, and within like a month, she could run without peeing. So for her particular, and everybody's different. So for someone else, it could be a different issue. Like her pelvic floor was strong enough. Hers was just the alignment and get everything into its right place. And that work did that.
Wow.
So yeah. And then it helps to get your circulation, everything flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
really something different.
Yeah. I think the world needs to experience it. So when you're like offering those again, you let me know, and I'm going to tell all the listeners here how to get in touch with you.
Will do. Yeah.
Are you ready for some like rapid fire questions?
Okay, let's do it. I'm a little bit nervous actually, but yeah, let's do it.
Don't be. They're just
no. Anytime it's like a quiz like that, I would probably, when you watch a television show and the quiz, and I'm like yelling at the TV, and they're like, why are you yelling so loud? Like I'll be yelling out the answers. But if I was on television, I'd probably just go blank.
Your stress response in a quiz situation on live television would be to freeze. I got it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Just very simply, what makes your heart sing?
Movement, dancing, music, my daughter.
What makes
sorry.
That's okay. No, keep going.
Like twisted humor,
Give me an example. What's a twisted humor?
I don't know, like something that, like maybe it wouldn't even be politically correct, but like there was something very smart about it. Like I have a way of seeing things where someone else is like, oh, that's horrifying, and I go, it is horrifying, but it's really clever. Yeah. I don't know if that makes my heart sing. That's probably the wrong example, but I don't know, when people are funny,
Yeah.
Life is heavy. We need to laugh. Too.
I agree.
We need to laugh as well.
Yes, I agree 1,000%.
Okay, so much for your rapid fire. I just that.
What makes your heart heavy?
Whenever people hurt, whatever that pain is for them, and it's individual, and you feel it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's somebody's loss or, I think so. I've been told I am.
What makes your heart flutter?
Oh my gosh. I know I shouldn't think too hard. It's like, what makes my heart flutter? I don't know. Everything now is like my daughter. That's the reason. Cause I can say like for a few years, I was probably more on the dark side. Like life was like a bit too heavy and I wasn't as happy. So just certain things she does, like when she giggles or like even when she cries, so terrible. She's so cute when she cries. And I'm like, I kind of just look at her and I'm like, oh wait, I have to comfort her. But then I'm like, oh my God, you're so funny and cute,
Let me just quickly record this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she makes my heart flutter. Or when somebody surprises you with an act of kindness, or they stand up in a way. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that where somebody just was like, no, that's not cool, and I don't agree with that. And they stood up for you, and you just didn't expect it. And they could have either gotten in trouble, or it would have been easier for them to just stay silent.
What is your heart's desire?
It's so tough because like the mind wants to go in and say things. So I'm really trying to just
Drop into your
literally
heart.
connect with the heart. I think in general, it would be for more people to find joy in life. You know, I feel like there is joy in life, but there's also so much pain. And I think that people stay with the pain. So I think that would be my sort of wish for people to step out of pain and also experience more joy.
I love that. You're such a bright light.
Psycho.
No. And
A psycho with a bright light.
Yeah, exactly. A psycho with a heart of gold. Roxy, I love you so very much.
Love
Thank you
too.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Next time I'm in the area, I'm going to come swing by, but I'll have pants on this time.
So you can come out of the truck.
So I could come out of the truck. And I love you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Once again, a big, heartfelt thank you to our guest today. Please be sure to check out the show's links for ways to get in touch with them, and also a link to the Living Spiritfully Collective Facebook group. It is a heart-centered community created in order to bring together people who are doing the work. So check us out. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next episode.